Imagine risking your life for a pinch of something you knocked off your kitchen counter this morning without a second thought. Something so valuable that Roman emperors used it to pay their soldiers. Something so essential that the man who controlled it in 16th century France controlled whether entire provinces ate or starved. Something so politically explosive that a 70-year-old lawyer once used a handful of it to humiliate the largest empire on earth. Today, it costs less than 40 cents a kilogram. You use it to season dinner and melt ice on your driveway. You have never once wondered where it came from or what it cost the people who came before you. This is the story of salt, and it is far stranger, far darker, and far more powerful than anything in your kitchen has any right to be. Pick up your salt shaker, look at it. Those tiny white crystals have been on more battlefields than most generals. Before refrigerators, before chemical preservatives, salt was the only technology standing between civilization and starvation. Without it, meat rotted within days. Armies could not march for more than a week. The human body itself cannot produce sodium. Without a steady supply, muscles cramp, hearts falter, and minds stop working. Think of salt the way we think of electricity today. Cut the power, and modern civilization collapses within 72 hours. Cut the salt supply in the ancient world, and an empire fell within a season. Welcome to object lore. Today, the object hiding on your dinner table shaped the world more violently than most weapons ever did. We begin in 640 BC, on the banks of the Tiber River in central Italy. Roman legionaries needed salt, not as a luxury, but as a military necessity. A soldier without adequate sodium could not march, could not fight, could not survive months on campaign in foreign territory. Salt also preserved the rations that kept armies moving across thousands of miles of hostile terrain. And so Rome built one of the oldest paved roads in Italian history, the Via Salaria, the Salt Road, running from the coastal salt flats directly into the heart of the city. To compensate soldiers for the cost of purchasing their salt rations, Rome created a special allowance built into their pay. They called it the salarium, from sal, the Latin for salt. That word never left us. Every single month, when you receive your paycheck, you are collecting, in a very literal, etymological sense, your salt money. Your salary is your salarium, and the expression, worth his salt, meaning a person who earns their keep, is a direct inheritance from an era when the measure of a man's labor was set in sodium chloride. Rome built its empire on this logic for 3 centuries. Control the salt, control the people. The year is 1281. In the shallow lagoon of the northern Adriatic, a city with no farmland, no forests, and no iron deposits, is about to build the most powerful commercial monopoly in medieval Europe. Venice had geography. Positioned between the salt flats of the Adriatic coast and the hungry inland markets of Milan, Florence, and Vienna, the Venetian Merchant Council passed a rule of breathtaking ruthlessness. All salt produced along the Adriatic must pass through Venice first. Taxed before reaching any other destination, merchants who bypassed this system faced confiscation, embargo, and, on several recorded occasions, armed pressure. By the 14th century, the salt tax accounted for more than 40% of Venetian state revenues. The palaces lining the Grand Canal, the gilded mosaics of the Basilica di San Marco, the naval fleet that dominated the Mediterranean for 2 centuries, all of it financed, at its foundation, by sodium chloride. Venice did not build its empire through conquest. It built it through a spice rack. But what Venice built as commerce, France turned into something far darker. In 1343, King Philip VI introduced the gabelle, a salt tax of such systematic cruelty that historians trace a direct line from its abuses to the blade of the guillotine. Every French citizen above the age of 8 was legally required to purchase a minimum quantity of salt each year, whether they needed it or not. The price was set by the crown. In northern France, salt was taxed at 6 times its production cost. In Brittany, just a few hundred miles away, residents paid a fraction of that, or nothing at all. The geographic inequality was deliberate. It prevented any unified resistance across provincial lines. The nobility was exempt. The church was exempt. Wealthy merchants with the right connections could purchase exemptions. The peasantry, farmers, fishermen, day laborers, paid in full, year after year, for 4.5 centuries. Entire criminal networks emerged around contraband salt. Families hid unlicensed salt beneath floorboards. Children as young as 12 were prosecuted under gabelle statutes. Tens of thousands were convicted. When the revolution finally came, abolition of the gabelle appeared on the very first list of revolutionary demands, before the Declaration of the Rights of Man, before the end of feudal privilege. The National Assembly abolished it in 1790. For 447 years, the gabelle had been loading the weapon, salt pulled the trigger. The last great salt confrontation in history was not decided by armies or tax collectors. It was decided by footsteps. On the 12th of March, 1930, a 70-year-old lawyer named Mohandas Gandhi walked out of the Sabarmati ashram in western India with 78 followers. His destination was the coastal town of Dandi, 240 miles to the south. His objective was to walk to the sea, pick up a handful of salt from the beach, and commit a crime. The British colonial government had banned Indians from collecting or selling salt without a government license, even if they lived directly on the coastline, even if it evaporated free of charge from the sea at their feet. Gandhi reached Dandi on April the 5th. He picked up the salt in front of an enormous crowd and an international press corps. Within weeks, 80,000 people across India had been arrested for salt law violations. The march did not end British rule immediately, but it did something more difficult. It cracked the psychological architecture of empire. 17 years later, India was independent. A handful of crystalline sodium chloride had done what generations of armed resistance could not. So the next time you reach for the salt shaker, consider what you are actually holding. In that small glass container is a substance that paved Rome's first roads and gave you the English word for what you earn at the end of every working month. It built the palaces of Venice from a swamp. It funded 4 centuries of oppression in France and was the first thing a revolution abolished. And in the hands of a 70-year-old man on a beach in India, a pinch of it broke the largest empire in human history. Your salt shaker is a 40-cent object. The history inside it is worth considerably more. Your body already knows this. It craves sodium with a precision that modern science still finds remarkable. Because for 3,000 years of human civilization, getting enough of it was never guaranteed. You were always going to reach for the salt. Now you know exactly what that means. If this episode added some historical weight to something you use every single day, like this video, so the algorithm doesn't bury it. And if you know someone who still shakes salt without a second thought, share this with them. Consider it an act of historical public service. For more hidden histories of the ordinary objects that shaped your world, subscribe to Object Lore. The next episode is already waiting.